Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Louise Kenny. I'm with the special events team here at Encore Learning. Welcome to our presentation today about A Katrina Story by Suzette Walker. And we have Suzette with us on this presentation. Before I begin, I'd like to mention a few things. First of all, we will be recording this webinar, so you can see it later if you have to, for some reason, leave early. The second thing I want to mention to you is that you should use the Q&A function and not chat. That this is that use the Q&A function and asking your questions. Also, I want to remind you that there will be a survey at the end of this presentation, so please do stay for a minute and complete the survey. Finally, a little commercial for the special events group. If you're a person that has great ideas and you're listening to NPR or around generally, we're interested in talented people that will help us create interesting special events tours as well as Zoom presentations. We have a number of great presentations coming up here. First of all, on the 20th, Central Library in Arlington will have the Indian boarding schools in the U.S. with the Washington Post journalist Dana Hedgepeth and Sari Horowitz. We also have a tour coming up at the end of December 19th, the National Portrait Gallery Tour, Brilliant Exiles, Women in Paris, 1900 to 1939. It filled up so quickly. If you would like to get on the waiting list, I encourage you to do so quickly. Actually, I'm on the waiting list because I hesitated a moment and therefore it was just so popular. And then some future events coming up. On January 13th, we'll have Representative Don Beyer talking about some of the things that he's been doing separate from his political career. And finally, on March 3rd at the Arlington Central Library, we'll be having a hybrid event that will be on Zoom and also in person at the library. Rebecca Graham talking about her upcoming book, Dear Miss Perkins, a story of Frances Perkins' efforts to aid refugees in Nazi Germany. So be sure to put that on your calendar. That should be very, very interesting. So our presentation today is about A Katrina Story, and that's the name of a book that was written by Suzette Walker about her experience surviving Katrina and then also her journey here in Northern Virginia. Just to set the stage a little bit, in August of 2000, Suzette, who was a lifetime member of New Orleans, was thinking about an upcoming cruise that she was planning with her daughter, swearing that nothing would come in the way of her that cruise. And Hurricane Katrina had some different thoughts in mind, and it led to her having to encounter a life and death situation and ultimately get rescued from the waters of Hurricane Katrina. Just to remind you, this was almost 25 years ago. On August 29th, 2005, Katrina came in as a Category 3 hurricane into New Orleans, with sustained winds of 125 miles per hour and maximum winds of 175 miles an hour. One of the problems with it was that it was a slow-moving storm, moving only at 12 miles an hour, and that equated to more rain and therefore with everything breaking down there. There was a storm surge of about 28 feet, and half of New Orleans' 350-mile protection of systems of levees and flood walls were overwhelmed. We have a few images that we wanted to show you just to remind you of what it looked like. The water went miles and miles and miles, and you can see there are no streets here. These are people at the Superdome down in New Orleans. You can see the conditions there. People trying to get through with the water as best they could. As best they could. It was a horrendous situation. And we forget about it because it's been 20 years ago, but it was an awful, awful, awful time. Notice the height of the water in the background. There were 1,833 lives lost. 1.2 million Louisiana residents were displaced, and there was about $170 billion in damage. So it was a huge event. And that's the backdrop of the story and why it's so dramatic, because it was such a huge event. The damage, this doesn't even do justice to the scope of the hurricane. Damage at one house, and then this is the next one is of how high the water came. Again, we're talking about second story houses. One in front of it is submerged in water, and then when people went back to their houses, the destruction that they came upon. In the next slide. think about cleaning up this after the hurricane. So it was a horrendous event. People lost their lives. And our guest today, Suzette Walker, was one of the lucky ones that survived and found a whole new life up here in Northern Virginia. A video was taken by the news organization down in New Orleans, and we wanted to give you, again, a moving sense of what it was like. So can we roll the video?
When Katrina hit in 2005, it didn't faze me one bit because New Orleans is known for hurricanes. Hurricanes. We're talking about hurricanes with some trees blowing, the wind damage, rain, not flood, rain. Hear me. This was a Saturday. They was predicting Katrina to hit Sunday night. So people was evacuated. I wasn't never one of those persons to evacuate. Never evacuated from a storm. That didn't even cross my mind to evacuate. What did cross my mind was I was going on vacation. Saturday night would have been my last night working. I was going on a cruise, a carnival cruise. I woke up about 3 o'clock that morning, and I looked out through my blinds, and I could see the wind and the rain, what I know, wind and rain. I go back to sleep. The next morning, my mattress is soaking wet. My mattress is soaking wet. So I wake up and I said, oh my God, and I look and I'm walking in water up to my knees. And I said, well, what I gotta do is I gotta pack. So what I did was I cooked. I fried me some chicken wings. I made me some macaroni and cheese. I emptied the refrigerator, the juices, the water, stuff I need. I had a 2-inch television. I had a radio. I had a flashlight. And you got to remember, I took my packed suitcase. Why it was packed? Because I was going on a cruise. So I was okay. I was okay mentally. You know, I wasn't freaking out. By the time I got out the house, the water was up to my breast line. It was up to there, and I'm carrying stuff. So I wasn't safe on the second landing of the hallway to the apartment. I had to go up to the third floor landing. So I did. I went up to the third floor landing. Again, you gotta hear, I had everything I needed for a temporary stay, and that's what was in my mind. I'm in this hallway, first night, I'm still okay. Second night, I'm still okay. 3 days, I began to panic. The water was still rising. I'm on the 3rd floor. In my apartment building like this, I was the only one. Everybody else was gone. Now, you gotta remember, National Guard didn't come until 5 days of the storm. So I'm talking about the 4th day of the storm. You would see people in boats. You would see people passing in boats. And so I hollered out to a guy that was in the boat, and he came over there. I said, hey, I need to get out of here. I need to go downtown to where I work at. If you can get me downtown. He says, neighbor, I can't get you downtown, but what I can do is I can bring you some water, some stuff that you may need. And I cried. And I said, oh, that's not gonna do it. I need to get out of here. He said, but how you gonna get out? He said, look, let me go see if I can get some more help, and I'm gonna come back for you. He came back 5 o'clock that evening. He threw me a rope, I tied it to the banister, and I clammed out on this rope until the boat. And when I got in his boat, I just hugged this guy. Never seen him in my life. Oh, I was so glad to see him and feel somebody and stuff. We're talking about 4 days later. And this guy named was Harold King, come to find out. Well, Harold, he would drop me back off to he did drop me back off because he had to go back to his family. So I'm thinking, so he said, things are going to be better tomorrow when the National Guard come in. So anyway, I said, please come get me, come get me. And he had kept his word, he came got me. So I goes back in my hallway, I have another night, this is the 5th day, and then what he used to do is, he'll come get me on a boat, and he used to bring me to a fire station where they had lower water, and they had a backup generator. So if I wanted to charge my phone, I could. Harold was like my protector, because when I wrote, because I journaled this, and when I wrote down, I said he was like an angel sent. He was an angel sent. I think about that sometimes. We're now into about 6 or 7 days into my my survival, my whatever you want to call it, and I'm sitting there, and here come Harold. Neighbor, yeah, Harold, what's going on? We going up. Y'all going? He said, this is my family getting sick. He said, and the National Guard is coming around. You're gonna be evacuated too, because it's mandatory. I said, well, they ain't making me leave. They can't make me leave my premises. This is my premises, they're not making me leave. He says, neighbor, I'm telling you, you're gonna get sick. How you gonna make it? And blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm sorry. It was nice knowing you. Take care of your family. See you. Bye. And he did, he left. Well, the next morning, I freaked out because it wasn't no more Harold. It wasn't no more boat. It wasn't no more going to the National Guard. It was like, oh my God, I totally freaked out. I freaked out. So I'm sitting there and I'm freaking out and I'm crying. I'm going like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is crazy. I can't stay here. I gotta go. So I made a flagpole. I took a broomstick and I took a pillowcase and I wrapped it around and I just began to wave it out my little attic window. And there come the National Guard. And I went up. So the next morning they said I was going to be in a group to go off to Houston again. I was excited. Everybody was in Houston, Texas. My friends, my family, my daughter. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait. I can't wait to get to Houston. So I'm in the international airport and the pilot announced I've got good news and I got bad news. He says, the bad news is we're not able to go into the state of Texas anymore. It's overcapacitated. We cannot bring any more survivors to Texas. But the good news is we're going to Washington, DC. I cried. Washington, DC? That ruins my whole plans. I'm seeing my family, being with my friends. Washington, DC? I didn't want to see the White House and I didn't want to meet the president. I cried. I just cried. I just couldn't imagine me being in Washington, D.C., but I did. And I can remember riding on the roads and the highway. All you can see is people of all nationality with signs, welcome, we love you, we thought about you, you're in our prayers. And I began to smile just a little bit. You know, every time you would step outside the State Armory on the step, somebody would come up to you and say, hey, what can we do? What do you need? Within 2 weeks of my 30 days, I was working. You know, I had landed a job. People were there to help you. I love being in Arlington. You know, the community really welcomed me because people ask me all the time, like, you don't ever want to go back home? And I say, no, not to live, to visit. I don't feel like home is home anymore. This is becoming home. It's like, I just fit right in. I'm just very, very comfortable in Arlington, Virginia. And I wake up sometimes and wonder about that. My name is Suzette Walker, and I live in Arlington, Virginia.
Wow. No matter how many times you see that video, it moves you each time. From a situation so dire to a happy person relocating and who's now a Northern Virginian. versus New Orleans. Well, right, I should say that. I'd like to introduce everybody up. I'd like
Yes.
I'd like to introduce everybody. Suzette. You saw Suzette, you've met her on the video, and here she is live and in person here. And Suzette, I'm glad to tell your story.
Sorry.
She's got 2 barking dogs, so let's see if we can take care of that. It is shocking to see that video after 20 years and to see how dire the situation was. It really is. So when you look at this, so again, officially, this is Suzette Walker, proud Northern Virginia resident. You don't live in Arlington now, though, right? You live in Fairfax?
Yeah. No. I live in Arlington.
Oh,
I'm
you're
still here in Arlington.
Sorry.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
somehow thought you had moved. When you
Yes,
look
ma'am.
at that video, what comes to mind?
Devastation. Devastation comes to mind. You know, it's just I almost have to reach out and touch myself to see, you know, was that me 20 years ago, and look at who I am today. It's just devastation that I was able to make it out. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
You must feel a sense of pride that you made it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
I do pat myself on the back.
Good. We saw in the video that you have a daughter. Can you tell us a little bit about your life in New Orleans and your daughter and
Okay.
how you grew up?
I do have a daughter. She'll be 32, and matter of fact, this Thanksgiving, her birthday, she's a Thanksgiving baby, and she'll be 32 years old. And both her and I are originally from Louisiana. And my daughter didn't come here to join me until like maybe a year and a half later, as to where I got settled here in Virginia. Back home, I was a front office manager of a hotel. And I lived pretty good, and I would say a standard blue collar living, you know. I did suffer with addiction during the Katrina time, and that was a part of my lifestyle, but I guess you would call me a functioning addict. So yes, that's my story in New Orleans.
Okay, you probably ate all that good New Orleans food, right? Best food in the
Yes,
world.
ma'am. All that good New Orleans food, and I'm a great Southern cook.
Oh, that's good for us to know. We'll have to cook us some
Yeah.
New Orleans meals sometime.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
You talk in the video about some quiet heroes, or all the people both in New Orleans and then up here that helped you and helped your spirit, helped you physically, helped you with your needs. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these people?
Yes, ma'am. I call them my halo of angels. That was just all the way from the beginning to, you know, in my book, you know, and I guess we'll get to the book later. In my book, I write as I had a vision of God while I was sitting there in the hallway. And that's what portion of the title of my book comes from, Thy Water Be Still. And God told me rescues would come, but he didn't tell me when. He didn't tell me when. So, but when rescues came along, as I sit here and tell you the story today, rescues continually became as I realized that today. And that's starting with anywhere from the guy on the boat, which came and helped me to get products to go in town that I thought was shopping, wasn't really shopping. His name was Harold. From him to the National Guard coming to airlift me. I had angels of halo all the way over. I'm gonna even say the people when I was on the bus coming from the airport, Reagan National Airport, that they had angels there with the signs and all those was angels that I had no idea was angels. And it just kept on continuing. It was a steady flow of angels, all in my pattern. Anywhere from me going to the YMCA, I'm sorry. Anywhere from me going to the shelter, State and Armory, meeting the director of a YMCA, giving me a job, meeting someone from there, giving me a place to stay, from a Red Cross worker who took me around to find it just kept on, it just kept on continue. Anywhere from on, it just kept on continue as my stay here in Arlington.
Wow. I was impressed that when you were telling us your story that you that they were very sensitive to your interests and your needs, that they didn't just say, here's a place for you to live. You said, I prefer not to live in Washington. And then they came out and you looked for housing in Arlington, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. What was going on then, maybe I think about a week or two into our stay, FEMA was arranging setting up houses because we wasn't able to go back in the city. The mayor hadn't declared us the city opened, in other words, back to residents. And that didn't happen, I'm told, till like 8 months later. But so they was taking, and I did go out. I did go out 1 or 2 days, but I'm a person of, I'm a people's person. That's what I call myself. I communication with people. And I had conversations about Washington, DC. And when they took us out to tour Washington, DC's, I just wasn't a product of those areas. I just wasn't that person. That's not how I live. So I wasn't happy. And the next day, I had got familiar with some of the workers in the shelter itself. And I explained to this one worker who I became conversation with, had held a conversation with, that I wasn't interested in staying in Washington, D.C. What other areas are there? She says, you're going to get a FEMA voucher. You can go live anywhere you want to, and not necessarily Washington, D.C., not even this area. FEMA is going to take care of your state, your state. And she offered to take me here in Arlington. And I didn't know anything about Arlington. The Arlington I know is in Texas. So I didn't have any idea I was visiting Arlington. And that's how I come to know about Arlington. Soon she took me in this area. I knew it was me. This is the way I live. So
There you go.
that's how the story began, to me being in Arlington.
All right. One of the things that interested me in your story is that you had people that really followed you, not just initially, but ongoing. You had a counselor that really stuck by you in terms of improving your life and sticking with you. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Again, as I mentioned, I was struggling with a drug addiction in New Orleans at the time of Katrina. And I came into the city, I came into this area with Arlington, Virginia, with that addiction, but it wasn't active. It wasn't active. It was on a how they say, you fall off the wagon or you relapse, something like that. I was in a recovering mode. That's where I was at. I was in recovering mode for about maybe 8-9 months. And after I got real settled and collect some dividends, and FEMA took care of me. FEMA took care of everything. I had a Metro Metro ride card, which I wasn't used to that at all. That was fun doing that. The Metro is exciting here. But anyway, I had a Metro card to anywhere from a Walmart card. I was given a $2,000 credit card for grocery shopping, and it just went on and on and on and on. So I had got relaxed, and in my my mode of relaxation got me so relaxed to where I went back into my addiction. I relapsed, as you call it. I went back into addiction, and again, with saying the services from the services with human services was, I was assigned to a counselor, and this counselor knew I had an addiction going on, but he just stuck by me. He was one of the main angels. He had a lot to do with my recovery today, because he stuck by me. I think he went more than beyond what he was supposed to. Not that I was unique or anything, but he must have seen the individual for who I really am. He knew I really wanted to recover, and I just didn't know how. And he helped me on that journey.
And now you don't have, you're in hopefully permanent recession,
Yes,
permanent.
ma'am. I stand with 18 years or more of recovery. Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
One of the other things the film showed was ordinary people greeting you. It wasn't a situation of all you people stand over here. I mean, people really made you feel welcome, and I didn't realize that that happened during such a crisis as Katrina. Can you tell us a little bit about what that felt like? You know, here you are up north.
Yeah,
Up
I
north.
was, I was shocked. I was surprised because um my trip coming here to the DC area, I was devastated. I had been crying. I had been crying on the plane. I had been crying on the bus, you know, and I just happened to look up and see different people, different cultures with signs welcome me. That was like, it was devastating. It was just what I said on the clip that, okay, the light looks like it's going to be getting to shine. Okay, DC.
That's great. That's great. That especially when different people of all different nationalities. You know, then it's not just one person. It's many people, many
It's
types.
many people, many
Yeah,
people.
yeah. So you wrote a book about your experience
Yes, ma'am, I did.
that I'll hold up here,
Okay.
and we'll talk about it later on. What
Yes.
made you decide to write a book?
My daughter helped me with that decision to write a book. Because I've always said, you know, I should write a book. I should write a book because my experience was like no other experience. I don't know anything about surviving. I don't know anything I did was out of the ordinary for me. You know, tying a rope, climbing out the window, cooking on tea light candles, just in a boat, going shopping, not really shopping, shoplifting. You know, that wasn't my character, and all that was becoming to me. And my daughter says, "Mom, you need to write a book." She says, and I was like, thousands of people that wrote a book on Katrina. You know, there are thousands of people, and there's books out there, but my book is unique and authentic, and it's completely honest, with honesty. It's a small book. I say a small book with big value, with good, honest conversation in it. And I did that to document for my daughter. She wanted me to do that, and she said it should be documented, and that's what I did, to let people know the full extension of Katrina. Because again, Louise, we have hurricanes every year, and you guys know that. We have hurricanes every single year. It wasn't the Hurricane Katrina that took us down. It was the catastrophe of the levees breaking. And I want people to know that, and they don't know that. And the good question is, people said, why you stayed? I talk about why I stayed, you know, why I stayed and why I did this and why I did that. But my book, I wanted the people to know, because the film has been out at least 15 minutes. That clip, that 10-minute clip has been out at least for 15 years. And people don't know the real story behind that clip. That's what I did. That's why I wrote that book.
Okay. Well, it's quite an endeavor to write a book. Not a lot of people don't write books. So
Yeah.
there you go. So,
Right.
you mentioned how well your needs were addressed by Arlington's structure. It's the human services area. So I'd like to do is introduce Larrick, who is the Assistant Director of Arlington Department of Human Services, to talk a little bit about how Arlington approached it. Now, this is the other side of the coin. When Suzette came in, there's a whole flood of people coming in. So how did Arlington react to that? So Kurt, can you hop on and talk to us a little bit about what you do and how it works?
Sure, I'm happy to, Louise. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, first, I just want to say that, you know, we're nothing special. I think Ms. Walker is a very resilient woman who would have found success wherever she landed. She's really inspirational, and I love to hear her story. You know, the reason we're able to do well in this area really goes all the way back to Vietnam. If you think about it, so many people were coming into our community. They needed help with housing, employment, food, language learning. They needed health screenings and vaccinations. And, you know, if they had children, getting them enrolled in school. So the reason we became, you know, adept at this was really the Vietnam War. And, you know, for folks who are displaced by natural disasters like Ms. Walker was, it's even a little bit easier because they already have citizenship. They already speak the language. So, you know, we built our muscles up in the 70s, and, you know, we've had occasion to use them, you know, with Katrina, and even more recently with Hurricane Maria that affected Puerto Rico. So we have a little bit of experience, and it's just a matter of slotting or seeing what people's needs are and then addressing them, frankly. So our agency, if you go to the next slide, we're an integrated human services agency, meaning that everything is under one roof. So we have the health department, we have housing programs, we have public benefits like SNAP, we have behavioral health care, which includes substance use services, and we have family services. So, you know, we really do, these things are available to any Arlington resident, and in a case of a hurricane evacuee, we're able to waive the 90-day residency requirement. We would call it a humanitarian crisis. And then we're able to plug those benefits into that person's life immediately. So we have a really good setup to accommodate these things when they happen. You know, nobody wants them to happen, but when they do, we typically can jump into action pretty quickly and meet the person's needs.
Okay. So there's one thing about meeting people's needs physically, kind of checking things off the list. You need this, and you need this, and you need this. How do you account for how positive Suzette's experience was? You know,
Yeah.
the human element of it.
Right. What we've learned through our experiences, you know, these people are coming to Arlington after having experienced the worst day or week or month of their lives. So there is real trauma there, and it can trigger previous behavioral health conditions. So we're a lot more cognizant of looking out for those sorts of things and offering the supports when they're needed, whether that's therapy or substance use services. We have a wide range of services that can help people out. But, you know, you can just tell with Suzette that she's strong, and she just needed a little hand up at a certain point in her life, and we were there to provide that.
Is there a group of volunteers that is in charge of creating the human touch of it, you know, that you key into when planes come in, you know, with the signs and with the hugging and everything? Is there a group within your organization, or do you team with another group or a church or anything?
Yeah, it really does take a village. Most refugee resettlement in our region is handled through Catholic Charities in concert with FEMA. So we get together with them and we'll say, you know, we can accommodate, you know, this many people, and we'll talk to Catholic Charities or FEMA, and we'll arrange for a point of contact at our agency to make sure that we assess the needs and then address them as quickly as we can.
So the people at the airports, who are they?
That depends widely on the circumstances. Usually FEMA and Catholic Charities will be at that tip of the spear, and they'll eventually get them to our agency.
Okay, thank you. Affordable housing is a challenge in our region. How do you handle someone with Suzette's background and her needs in terms of affordability? Ultimately.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the reason FEMA isn't sending hundreds and thousands of people to Arlington is that it's the cost of living, the cost of rent is so expensive here that we don't typically get a lot of refugees or displaced persons assigned to us. When we do, you know, of course, we can leverage whatever services we have. FEMA is really good about the vouchers in these disaster situations. and other supplemental payments. So we can roll them quickly into, if they have a housing choice voucher, for instance, that is easily portable to our community. The FEMA vouchers go a long way. And even, because we're allowed to waive the 90-day residency requirement, we can bring people into our local housing grants program, which is kind of a mini housing choice voucher where it's a rent subsidy that we pay to the landlord of anybody who's renting in Arlington and they're in the program.
And how long does that last, Kurt?
For as long as you qualify for it, it's for life. It serves
For life?
older adults, working families, and individuals with disabilities.
Oh, okay. And they continue over time to coordinate through your agency?
Yep. Like I said, we have so many different services under our roof, whether you need ongoing substance use counseling or housing or benefits, it's all us.
Okay. And you mentioned a few other organizations you work with, Catholic Charities. Do you also work with surrounding towns, Alexandria, or is it just all Arlington does its thing and Alexandria does its thing and Fairfax
it's a little bit of both. What we found is if our whole region, people want to help. And so if we need to move a person into an apartment, we can work with churches, faith-based organizations, and we don't care if they're across the border in McLean or Alexandria, and they help us equip a startup apartment with furniture, beds, kitchen supplies, all that stuff. So I think we're fortunate to live in such a giving community that all you really have to do is ask, and so many people are willing to help. It's really quite beautiful.
That is quite beautiful. Thank you. Aren't we lucky that we live in this caring area?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to ask Suzette specifically? She's really positive, so that's a really good thing. This can be a post-evaluation of her experience. Anything that you have in mind to ask her? And I can also then open it up to everybody else. If you do have a question, put it in the Q&A, and then we will address it with either Kurt or Suzette.
Yeah, first, I really want to thank Suzette for being willing to just get out there and share her experience. I think it inspires other people to they have hard things going on in their life, these challenges, and none of them's going to be more than what Ms. Walker has gone through. And she's got the spirit, the fight, the resilience, and I think it's wonderful that you're sharing your story with us. And the one thing I mentioned it earlier, the thing I want to know is can you get the cuisine that you used to get down there up here in Northern Virginia? Because I need some gumbo that's for real,
Okay, Kurt, I'll invite you over for Christmas.
Okay.
Well, I know RT's restaurant here in Arlington is a New Orleans restaurant. So there's if all of us can't go to Suzette's house, maybe spread ourselves out to some area restaurants. We talked about the short term, Suzette, of your experience and how positive it was. So now you're here 17 years. Is that what it is?
No, it'll be 20. It'll be 20 in 2025. I've been here 19 years now. 2025 of August the 27th would be 20 years.
Okay. So acquaint us with what's happening after the first few years. What are you doing now?
The first few years, I never stopped working. I've been working. I'll be retiring in 3 more years. And I never thought I would do that in this area, but I will be retiring. I don't know if I'm going to go move back to Louisiana, if I'm going to stay. I don't know that, but I am. I will be retiring. I've been working ever since I started. I'm what you call a lead concierge. That's a concierge of condominium building. We never had that in New Orleans. I was a front desk manager in New Orleans of a hotel. So when I came here, that was very new to me, a concierge of a building. And that was just new. So I've been doing that, and I've been at my buildings, this building I'm recently added, but the longest building I've been at was a building over at River House, and I was there for almost 15 years. So,
oh, wow.
so I'm working. I own my own condominium, and my daughter's doing great. My daughter's she's considered in the system because she's a disability girl, and so it's going good for me. I mean, it's good for me. When I go home, Louise, to visit, it's almost I'm ready to come back to Arlington. I'm ready to come back to Arlington, and that could be good or bad. That can make me either sad when I'm doing the plane out from New Orleans, or that can make me happy. And the sad part is that how can I be so excited leaving my home base? So that's what I'm saying. It comes happy and sad. I'm getting back, but I'd be glad when I get back here to Arlington. No, I'm still not ready to go back to move to Louisiana. It's not that. I don't know where I'm gonna relocate at, but I can assure you it won't be New Orleans, Louisiana.
Wow. You're almost a northerner. Be careful, they'll call you Yankee when you go home. Better be careful. So we do have a couple questions in the Q&A that I wanted to pose to you. Mary Ellen says, this is for Suzette. What advice would you give to someone who's been told to evacuate ahead of a storm or other disaster?
Mary Ellen, that's funny. I would evacuate. I would evacuate. It's a good question because now here in Arlington, when they have a power outage in this area, I'll be like, oh my God, I want to go somewhere where there's light. It freaks me out now. I would definitely evacuate. That's my answer to that question.
Okay. From somebody who knows.
Somebody who knows.
Right. Jean asked the question, thank you, Suzette and Kurt, for today's presentation. What do you think Arlington's public, private, nonprofit, and overall community could do to be more resilient and better able to assist people in crisis?
That's a good one. We have a Department of Emergency Management in Arlington, and they are very big on preparation. Suzette talked a little bit like she already had her suitcase packed, but she had a lot of other emergency supplies ready to go. She had a little TV, she had a radio. We recommend people have those things, that they have, if not backups of their prescription supplies, then at least write down their prescription so they have that complete list, as well as for their pets. What we do in Arlington is we recommend people sign up for Arlington Alert. So if there is some sort of emergency, you can get text or email notifications about what to do. If you really want to help on the back end of an emergency, we use Volunteer Arlington, which is our community's volunteer network. volunteerarlington.org, I think, is the URL. And any organizations that need assistance, whether that's donation, financial, people to help clear debris or whatever, they're going to post their needs on Volunteer Arlington's website, so people can go there to see how they can best support the recovery of a disaster.
Suzette, anything else you want to add based on on the other side of it, not the management side? You're the person receiving the benefits. Anything?
I can assure you that they will reach out. They will reach out. I was astonished about all the avenues I had for support. I really was astonished. Again, I've never been in that situation before, but I was astonished at all the avenues they had for me.
Wow. That makes me feel good living in this area.
Yes, ma'am.
Knowing that's great. Janice asked the question, a friend of mine who also went through hard times in Louisiana mentioned something called a Louisiana handshake. Can you tell us what that is?
Okay, a Louisiana handshake. A Louisiana handshake is when someone shake your hand, they're passing money through it.
Got it.
That's a Louisiana handshake.
Okay, I'm gonna remember that for the future.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll hope that happens to me many times. Just before they serve me some gumbo,
Yes, ma'am.
So anybody else have any questions for either Suzette or Kurt?
We do have a question in the Q&A about whether things are going to be cut back with the new administration. You know, we're certainly in a wait and see mode. In Arlington, we get about 60%, 63% of our funding through state and local dollars. So, you know, knock on wood, any impacts from policy changes across the river would be minimal here in Arlington, but you know, it's a wait and see situation.
Okay. Okay. Well, a few more questions popped up. Eileen asks, how many people came with you, Suzette? Did you have any friend who came with you so that there was somebody with you that you knew?
Okay. Eileen, I didn't know any individual out of 250 people. I didn't know any individual. The guy, you know, again, get my book because I talk about the guy that I met on the plane who kind of aided me during the tears of me coming to DC. I didn't know him, but that's how people are in New Orleans. Everybody is called. Another quote is, you heard the handshake. Another quote is neighbor. He was just like, neighbor, everything's going to be okay. You know, so no, the answer to your question is, I didn't know anyone.
Okay. Okay. Janice asked another question. I was very pleasantly surprised to hear of all the services and TLC that goes to people who need help. Do you think there needs to be more education to the public about this? I guess that's to both of you, Kurt and Janice.
Go ahead, Kurt.
We can always do more to communicate and educate about issues like this, how people can get help and how people can give help. So there's always more to do.
And also publicize it, that's a big deal. That's an important element. So thank you. Suzette?
I agree. There's always more to communication.
Got it. Kathy asked the question, was the transition of the relocation difficult? The culture being different, the climate being different, the weather, did it take some time to adjust?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, Miss Kathy. No one here calls anyone neighbor. You can have a slip and a fall in the snow, which I did, I experienced. They wasn't so kind to me. The food is definitely different. I always have to put a lot of season on my takeout food. The Cajun season, that is. And the snow, they can keep their snow. If that's why I leave the area, I will leave because of the snow. The snow. I don't know what it is to be in 19 and 9 digits of cold. I don't know that. You know, I tell friends that we have, the temperature is 9 outside. They're going like, what? Are you in Alaska? Yes,
no,
ma'am.
I'm in Arlington.
Yes, ma'am.
Anne asked the question of you, Suzette. How did Hurricane Helene, the news of Hurricane Helene affect you? She said, I would think it would be traumatic when you saw.
Okay. All right. Recently we've been having a lot of, you know, hurricanes come our way. You know, it does. It freaks me out. I don't know. I can think of a better term. But I reach out to my immediately family in Louisiana. I do have family back in Louisiana, good close friends back in Louisiana. I need to say my daughter and I, we're the only ones here. I have no family up this way. I have no family, it's just my daughter and I. And I just really get nervous if there's a power outage. I don't know too much about a hurricane up here, but it can be, I guess it can be, I didn't experience up here a light earthquake and flooding, but not for me flooding. So it would just end on the snowstorm. That's what I'm trying to say. I think they had a real bad one in 2016 or 2010 that really, really kirked me out. It really did, because I was stuck in it. I got off from work at 5 o'clock in the evening. I didn't get home till after midnight because they wasn't prepared. So that kind of stuff, yeah, freaks me out. But for this hurricanes, I just could be concerned about my friends back home in Louisiana.
Got it. Well, you mentioned your book, so I wanted to show everyone your book.
Yes, ma'am.
Here's Suzette's book. If anybody would like to buy it, It's $20, and you could send an email to info@encorelearning.net, and they will get the message over to Suzette, and this will include shipping, and you can own this book. And it's really quite interesting to read her book, and it certainly sounds like you, Suzette. You've spoken of, you said authentic voice, and when you read it, it really does. There's one more question here. Carolyn asked the question, how long did it take you to write the book? Do you consider yourself a writer? And congratulations on taking the time to write your story.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. No, I do not consider myself an author. Don't want to be an author. It's funny you mentioned that, because some of my readers, they get to me and says, we want more, we want more, we want more. We want 200 pages of this. We want more. Why did you stop it then? It wasn't supposed to be a book of 200 pages. It just was supposed to be my documentary. It just was supposed to be actually facts, authentic, you know, my honesty, my gut truth. You guys know what a hurricane is in the south of New Orleans, Louisiana. And that's what I wanted to put in there. I put the main stuff in that little bit, in that little bitty book of 66 pages, but it's so authentic and it'll hold your attention. It's a read to end read book.
Oh, and I will testify to that. So on that. Well, in closing, Suzette, I'd like you to get the last word in here. So what would you like to leave people with about what this experience taught you, or how about saving your life and moving on to an even better life? How did this, something that was a disaster, turned into ultimately a good thing?
That's correct. I was taught that the true meaning of survival, that I have resilience, I have faith, I have patience, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. No matter what situation you go through. And I know we panic when we have different situations, and that's natural for us to be in a panic mode. But trust and believe you can get out of that situation if you just try and just believe and just aim for that direction. You too can be a Suzette Walker, a survivor.
Amen. Amen. And thank you also to Kurt for helping with that. Maybe it wasn't 20 years ago that you helped with it, but you're helping people like Suzette now. So
yes,
that's a wonderful, way to end this. So we appreciate it, Kurt. We appreciate you being here. I would invite everybody to complete the survey that you will receive at the end of this presentation. Again, here is Suzette's book, info@encorelearning.net, and you too can own Suzette's book. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Suzette. Thank you, Kurt. And we'll see you at our next presentation, or well, actually the tour in December, and then Don Byers' presentation in January. So keep your eye on the newsletter, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.